which is going to take them on the Paris-Brussels. In fact, it's starting way out of Paris at Noyon. These are pictures from this morning as the riders gathered under rather inclement conditions. Morning sellers of their greengrocery being disrupted by the spectacle of these riders setting off on the 251 kilometres of the race to Brussels. This place, Noyon, some 50 miles north of Paris actually. In the old days, they used to ride this race all the way from Paris to Brussels, covering over 400 kilometres. In fact, the maximum distance was 440 kilometres, and that was just before the First World War. We'll come back to that in just a moment. There are familiar colours interspersed as well with some of the less familiar colours going through here, because we've got roughly where they're going into finish. We're not going to actually finish in Brussels at all this time. The finish is Anderlecht, which is on the outskirts of Brussels, and already picking up the action under what turned out to be very, very bad conditions indeed. We've had some pretty horrible weather, and in fact I think that's helped the lone breakaways. Here we're looking then at Francis Morrow of the GAN team, ex-pursuit champion of the world, going for an early break this morning. The race actually is likely to finish just before 7 o'clock Central European time, about to 10 to. That's averaging 40 kilometres per hour. Well, riding on the Le Mans bikes here, I understand the Beg is still looking forward to another season next year. This is one of the titanium versions, by the way, and you can see, as I said, an early break in this race. As usually managed to fly out there, 13 minutes and 55 seconds, with the field getting the wind behind them. It did suit one. Just going there through Senef. And that's 197 kilometres have been covered, 56 kilometres to go towards the finish. We're getting more now towards Nivelles with a 48 kilometre point, but it's gone a bit through that particular point. Then with the leader still out there on his own, and you can just get some idea of the rerouting of this course now. They pick out still some of those terrible cobbles. Francis Morrow then, the greatest leader, had some 13 minutes and 44 seconds, and the crowd really applauding him here then. And 42 kilometres to go from the finish as far as he's concerned. You can see it on the left-hand side of the screen, bouncing over these cobbles, which are very, very difficult indeed on these very wet conditions. And of course, in the field we have behind, certainly won't be attacking this man, Duca Lassalle, winner 2 years in succession of the Paris-Roubaix, which traverses very much similar conditions to what we're watching here just now. But you don't get the impression, by the way, just on a motorbike like this, of how the bikes bounce up and down, and the vibrations that come up through the bikes. And really, if you stand on the side of the road, particularly a fast stretch when it's dry and they go thundering through, it's absolutely amazing that these riders will have to sort of compete over those conditions. I remember in the Kellogg's Pro Tour this year, there was some concern from one or two of the riders that they went up a very short hill. Just being followed through then by Udo Boltz. Raul Alcala going through. GBMG likewise beginning to get in amongst this little lot. So it's the sprinters. There I see him in the golden helmet. He's now taken his. Been very quiet recently, but they're out 12:37 with 51k as far as there to go. So now then, all you chaps doing mental arithmetic out there, 51 kilometres, 12 minutes and 37 seconds. It's on, but he could win this one. Rod home and dry, 11:55. It really is coming down now, isn't it? So that's let's say it's 10 to 6 in Central European time. There's all too quiet words to the cameraman. Come on. Yep. He's getting away here. They want it really wound up now. And you can see that GBMG have come on the front there. Ludwig Willems moving through. It's awful conditions, aren't they? Look at that. Gently on the brakes. Of course, here again in the towns you get this diesel. Far more diesel cars are used on the continent than we do in Great Britain, and you get a lot of spillage of diesel. In these conditions it gets very, very slippy indeed. But then motorcycle cameraman is going to wind it up a bit and get away from here. Because half the trouble is up in front too, you get other motorcycles there with Cameron on them, and one or two of the official vehicles laying back, and you get yourselves with a bit of a problem. Here's Sarah Rush, is the one that we saw Morrow go up. Well, we did. Well, we had a commercial going on. You didn't see it at home, so here's a chance of reliving the climb that Morrow dragged himself over. And they're probably now around about 11 minutes up that. Look at this one. It's a fair old climb, isn't it? Lovely little chunky one. Just switched them out in Nivelles. Up this climb here. Not far from the Autodrome to Nivelles. And they had a quick look there. Jan Mozeau, number one. Staying near the front very sensibly. And I think that the steam's gone a bit out of the chase at the back there. So let's hope they ain't coordinated yet again. We have to really work at this one, I'd have thought. Amazing, Johan Capio sliding off the front. Likewise. All the work that's been done by the domestiques to whip this along. You see the strongmen have come to the front on the hard stuff here, but they've still got that big gap. This is the part that we watched Morrow go over. You're with us now, and we'll tell you how you bounce on the cobbles. Just look at this. Capio really there, doing the right thing, sitting with his hands in the centre of the bars. You've got to pick a good line. See, they're switching onto the inside track. Oops, that camera went all over the place. But then again, they can't see too well if that camera gets in the way, and they're looking for the smoothest part on which to ride. And the worst thing is if you just drift too much into the sides, where it is a bit flatter, you can find yourself suddenly running out of road and find yourself in the gutter, and then right down amongst the thick and sticky. But it looks like he's over this one there. Look at that. I told you, bounce all over the place. Sharp right, watch the brake, lads. Zao looking back. Capio up in front of him. Now these two sprinters over won't want to do any more with it. They've got up there safe and sound. They're going to now wait for their domestiques, as I call them. All damn good bike riders, capable of winning race themselves. They'll have to come forward now and coordinate this chase. And of course, the ones that are putting their foot down that corner, 1 or 2 of them will be tired from the chase we've already had. It's going to take them some time. This way, one ride on his own has got a slight advantage, but there again, once we come off this one, we've got this evening a long old day in the saddle, a very wet one too, as far as they're concerned. It just bucketed down with rain, and they were disgusting. It's a condition like we've had today, by the way, but they went straight to the centre of Derby, round the sort of part of the ring road and through bits of the town centre, and because the condition was so bad you could hardly see anything, and the riders got past the police at a restaurant that's one of the co-sponsors. I think it's the St. Guidon. Guidon, of course, is a word for handlebar, so I can only presume that the handlebar saint himself is in charge of the function. I know it's in one of the restaurants that are actually sponsoring the race today. There are 2 restaurants. The other one is called the Alacino, and the restaurant Alacino, that is our group. 10-4, that's a little lot that got split off on that last climb, by the way, but I think they're likely to get back, although they'll have to do a bit of sharp moving to do it. His life here, the ex-pursuit champion of the world, not had the best of seasons. And look at the gap coming down now. The main group of contenders then, just some 23 seconds back to the other group, and he's now down to 9:55. I'm looking at the clock here. I now make that at 6:05. So in the last 10 minutes, they've caught him back only 1 minute. In the last 10 minutes, they've only caught him 1 minute. So he has got a chance here. The previous 5 minutes, they pulled him back 1 minute. In the last 10 minutes, they've only pulled him back 1 minute. So keep your fingers crossed. This could be a cracking ride. One of those lone breaks that we get. Let's surprise everybody. That dull finish you're looking at, by the way, that's because this bike's made of titanium, and you don't have to paint titanium bikes, you can just finish up. But they do, in fact, treat this one in a particular fashion to give it that grey look. And this is a group which has got only about 23 seconds. Another main party behind them, and it's splitting. Oh dear. Now then. And you notice the sprinters don't want to pull that one down. Shandry just sat there and said, "Come on." Andre Nampved riding for them this year was quite good too, the Norwegian. Well, all these nice little climbs which Belgium sort of throws at bike rides just to make sure they don't fall asleep. Just a kilometre or so in climbing. Now this will be the test really, because I say he's held that 1 minute to the last 10 minutes only losing 1, and it did seem to be on the climb that he lost it before. So let's see what they do this time. Well, he still looks pretty strong, so perhaps he's gone for that bad patch. Bike rider knows you suddenly find yourself really grovelling, and then you have plenty to eat and drink and relax a bit, and then some of the strength come back in. So perhaps he's had his bad little patch, and some like 30 kilometres to go in as far as he's concerned. And with that gap last we heard, just inside 10 minutes as far as this rider here, Morrows, from the main chasing group. He may still make it, but to find out, stay with Eurosport and join us after this break. Thank you. It's a bit better now. Got the numbers all mixed up. That's Jean-Pierre Hendricks who's riding for the Colstrop team. They're up, that one there, number 64. That's the team that Henrik Redant rides for. He won 4 races this year, and I was looking forward to another season. So a lot of these riders have still got to impress sponsors because they're not all fixed up with teams for next year. There's only a few more races to go to the end of the year, and if you don't really show yourself... That's him, Jan Mazel, round the front there. A lot of interesting news coming out of the governing bodies, by the way. They're saying that the World Road Championship in 1996 is going to be actually held on the 41st weekend of the season, which means it's going to be sometime in the middle to back end of October. So even a bit later this time of the year, they're going to have the World there on the right-hand side of Van der Poel. We're quite happy with that because we're great cyclo-cross riders used to come good under these terrible conditions, but that's been very unusual. And Caprio 162, let's see how they go on this climb here. We'll come back to that in just a moment about the movement of the road. But also the road will be held, I think, on the 41st week of the season, and the track will be held on the 30-something, about 4 or 5 weeks before it. So there's some rather strange things going on. I'm sure that the officials know what they're doing, but it is certainly looking at the trail organising a rather strange way. Tibaldi, we've seen him go at the front before. He's off again this time. Well, I reckon the gap now, they've been giving us over 9 minutes, and in fact, yes, it's just on 9 minutes and 5 seconds at this point, according to my check. So they've pulled back half a minute. We'll just check to see if the officials give me the same time. But I reckon it's down closer to 9 minutes now, the gap between leader Francis Morrow and this main field. But with something around about 27 kilometres to go, that could still be enough as far as he's concerned. In fact, I should double think it's going to be. Tibaldi riding his way up here for Gatorade. Very strong man that a lot of people are expecting something of today, Dirk de Wolf. He's not in this group at all. Tibaldi's in trouble. He's either thrown his chain or something. He's just suddenly stopped. And so driving taken over by Franco Ballerini. And look how the chain is jumping up and down there. You can see it bouncing along. Chandri looking very, very good indeed. Now when he's coming to form at just the right time, but I'm sure they're not going to catch Morrow. So this is going to be a sprint for second, surely. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Slow motion of Tibaldi bouncing along here, and his legs. Oh, his foot comes off the pedal. I saw exactly the same thing happen as that on the cobbles in Cardiff when Bob Roller was riding in those days for Motorola on one of the stages. No, 711, that's right, riding for 711, which sort of then evolved into Motorola team. He was riding for 711. We had a stage finish in the middle of Cardiff Castle, and here you can see there the riders going into Anderlecht. That's the finish vehicle will be just on the outskirts of Brussels, not going straight into the town at all, but these are the little climbs that are going to sap the strength of riders. They're actually coming in a sort of semicircle from the southeast side of Brussels, going round toward the western side now. They're back towards Waterloo and heading up then towards the main run in towards Anderlecht. So he's still got some tough stuff ahead of him, and just keep your fingers crossed to see if he'll survive the difficult road ahead of him. I wish him the best of luck, Francis Morrow, because I don't think he's done much this year. Finished 165th in the Milan San Remo, 9th at 2 of the Loires this year. He likes that race, by the way. He finished 4th last year and 3rd the year before that. And you have to go back to his stage victory in the Paris-Nice in 1990, the stage in the Semaine Catalan, to see some of the early promise that he made when he got the Pursuit Championship of the world. Drifted out of the frame this year, of course, for the superb performances of Bourbon and Aubry on that marvellous track. when he met up with the amateurs, riding over a shorter distance too, 4,000 metres, and that's Peter Poss. Peter Poss was third. Peter isn't out today, at least he wasn't at the start this morning with the team, but Peter would relive this race, I'm sure, when he finished in third spot in 1963, and they covered 289 kilometres, so Van Hooydonk, that's him on the front at the moment, and two of those we don't normally see up in action like this at the moment. We just got there Noel Sostek, number 77 for the Willem team, obviously trying to make his name with a sponsor. Capio then moving through, looking strong. Winner of the Paris Tours last year, although year before I think it was, but certainly we've got that on our list of events for you as well. That's a sprinter's speciality, that one. There's some good ones in this one, what with Ludwig and Capio making them up to front. Muzzo already up there as well. Now I think it's all going to come back together again. Kamala's doing a nice little job, the Polish fellow, got 4 back from the front. He's not coming through. They won't know a lot about him, by the way. There's one or two of these riders know each other inside out. They were 8.23, well I think that's just for academic interest at the moment. Capio's, having brought Ludwig up, has now decided to try and get rid of him by the looks of it. On his multicoloured Gazella bike. I was giving Columbus a bit of a plug for their new steel. I must say this one is made of Reynolds 531. Still a lot of these riders. You see, most of the bikes, and I was looking this morning, the odd titanium bike about the place, not many aluminium and carbon fibre ones. They rely very much on steel bikes when you're bouncing along over conditions like this. The roads here are absolutely diabolical. So when they first started out with titanium, the tubing, they had normal sized tubing, and to get it down on the thin walls to get its weight down, it was rather whippy, but they've got new grade of titanium now, and they've actually beefed the diameter of the tubes up to give it that strength as necessary when you get pounded along like this fellow's doing. So Francis Moreau looks like he's really on his way now to this one, and yep, he's looking good. I think he's cracked this one now, but only around about 9 kilometres to go. In fact, well, it's less than that. Well, come back shortly and see if he gets it. I'm sure he will. National, and here he is now doing a wonderful time trial. Been out there for well over 200 kilometres now with the victory inside. He's recovered. He took a bit of pasting further back when he first came on air. He lost a lot of time, but now seems to have got it in the bag on the way in towards the outskirts of Brussels. We're going to finish then at Anderlecht, and he's getting very, very close indeed to that now. Born the 21st of July 1965, so that's going to make him some 28 years of age, from Saint-Quentin in France, and there those final 2 kilometres. He's really going to be a ceremonial lap of honour almost as far as he's concerned, because this lot here are going to have to concern themselves. Well, that was a quick kilometre, wasn't it? Caption man put 2 up, and then we see the old red flag saying 1. That's a nasty one, isn't it, for the main group, or what's left of it, to whack their way around this one. That's certainly a long straight stretch and quite a wide run in to the finish. They've had a sort of sharp bends over the lefts and rights over the railway lines, and then we'll be coming straight down in to the Avenue d'Itterbeek for the finish. A rather bedraggled crowd is waiting not to welcome a Belgian victory. We have to go back to Wim House in 1987 when the last Belgian won this one, and then back to Roger de Vlaeminck it was in 1981, that was the Belgian before that to win the race. So it's been very multinational in its success in recent years. The Danish rider Sorensen last year, Brian Holm from Denmark the year before that, Ballerini the year before that, Nyland from Holland the year before that, Goltz from Germany the year before that. Now we're going to have a Frenchman putting his name up there on the list of successes, and we've got to go back a long way, I think, to see when the last Frenchman was that won this race. And we go back to Jan Stablinski, by the way, according to my notes here, and that was 30 years ago. Jan Stablinski in 1963. Here Francis Moreau 30 years later gets it for France and for Gone. Fine long solo performance by this man, and I don't think when he set off he ever thought that he would do that right the way to finish, but he's done a wonderful ride today. Showed great tenacity under very, very bad conditions, been bucketing down with rain, but that I think probably aided him somewhat with the main field feeling that they would let him fly out there or freeze to death and get rather cold, because it's not been much more than about 12-13 degrees today, except the sunshine this morning at the start, but it's been a bit glossy since then. But they left him out there, and he just persevered, and that just shows, by the way, that it's worthwhile keeping. I like Ross Scioli in the Tour de France, you may remember him getting out that long lone break, like Thierry Marie years ago in the Tour de France. Sometimes he's attempting in the gallop for the sprint. Well, there's a useful couple of sprinters in there, by the way, Mazeo and Capio, and I'm not quite sure if they're going to wait it out for the end. I should have thought probably now. They've got well away from that group, haven't they? Those twists and turns have made a hell of a difference. They were sizable lump. We've been up looking at the leader, and they've missed out on this little group, which has now formed itself at the front by a bit of a war of attrition, really. They've been getting rather drifting off the back rather than going off the front. And that's Mazeo. Brian Herm at the back is the fellow that won it in 1991, so he's got a chance of getting second place for his troubles today. Yes, can't believe it, can he? I can see that. 3615 gun, that's the old Minitel way. If you want to phone up in France on the Minitel and get information about insurance, that's what the 3615 GN means. Well, a piece of useless invasion. We've got a Minitel and living in Birmingham, so it's no good at all, is it? There we are. They're back here home, sitting on the tail end of this little lot. Quite happy, I think, to let the others do the work. That's Mazeo just up in front of him. Capio, who brought Ludwig up to the group behind, has now managed to get rid of him. And that sort of clock down the left-hand side, I think that's purely academic interest to see what the gap finally is at the end of it all. He's taken off his usual position. Verhoeven has done the right thing, I think, by deciding to sit onto his wheel as well. Yeah, they can all watch each other. The group behind is a fair way off the pace now, so there's a chance that Verhoeven is going to try and slide away from this one, I think, because he certainly doesn't have the same sprint the rest of the people have. I mean, Verhoeven, quite a useful sprinter, had what, some 40-odd victories as an amateur before he turned pro, and could do with a victory today. So he's also hanging off a bit off the back. Somebody's going to fly down one side or the other, but I think they've left it a bit late. This is played right into the hands of Capio and Mazeo. Now on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that the left-hand side, Capio and Mazeo, they're the two greatest sprinters here, and I would think now that's the way it's going to go, but we'll have to wait and see then as Jelle Naarden starts to wind up. It's been a lot too late to start as far as Naarden's concerned, but is he going to get second place? Mazeo's up alongside him, Naarden begins to die, Mazeo comes up, but Naarden might still get it. Naarden just about for Mazeo, I would think. Well, Naarden then, Jelle Naarden was just about half a wheel in second place, I would think. Well, he took a bit late. He usually likes to go a bit further back than that, but certainly, and here comes the rest of the riders. A very bedraggled group of riders coming in. Zamara not wanting to sprint this one out, I don't think. He said, well, he's come off the wheel. And the GB stickers on the road, that's the co-sponsor of Mazeo's team, GBMG, GB being the Belgian supermarket group and MG being the clothing group from Italy. Adi van der Poel is finishing there, and here we go back to this sprint, which is a bit long time winding up. And I think that both Mazeo and Capio thought as long as they keep the lid on this, the better it will be. See, home here is just saying, well, he's not going to go with this one. And, well, you can't see from there who was second and third, but I reckon it was Naarden that took up the second spot. Anderlecht, the football stadium, well-known team, and so the race then won by Francis Moreau, and there's confirmation that Naarden was in second place and Mazeo was third. I'll have a look down at the pitch nicely there with the blue flag of the European Community decorating the centre of the pitch. So we had a victory then for a Frenchman, ahead then of Nijlen from Holland in second place, and the third place Museeuw from Belgium. And then we have Victor up on the rostrum with his collection of trophies. He's got all that lot on. He's been riding something like a couple of 100 kilometres today on his own, and there he is, complete with flowers and trophies and what have you. Headlaster News, the sponsor of this race for the last 20 years, got plenty of coffee to write about in the race this year. There we are. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of Paris-Brussels. It's time to say bye-bye.